The rain had just stopped when Sergeant Daniels noticed it. A small white mark on the palace's eastern wall, barely visible in the early morning light. Just a simple chalk drawing, the kind children might scribble on sidewalks. But Daniels wasn't looking at a child's game. His heart stopped for a second. Then it started racing. The symbol was crude. 3 lines forming a triangle with a dot in the center. Nothing that would catch a tourist's eye, nothing that seemed dangerous at all. But Daniels had seen this mark before. Years ago, during his military training, in classified briefings that made young soldiers sit up straighter in their chairs. This wasn't graffiti, this was a warning. He pulled out his radio with shaking hands. His thumb hovered over the button. Protocol was clear. Any suspicious marking near the palace required immediate reporting. But this was different. If he was right about what this symbol meant, calling it in over standard channels could be the worst mistake of his life. The morning shift was changing. Tourists would arrive in 2 hours. The palace gardens would fill with families taking photos, couples holding hands, children running across the perfectly trimmed lawns. Daniels looked at the symbol again. The white chalk seemed to glow against the old stone wall. 3 lines. 1. In military code it meant one thing. Danger present, evacuate immediately. But there was something else. Something that made his stomach turn. The symbol was placed exactly 4 feet from the ground. That wasn't random. That height had meaning too. It meant the threat was already inside. Before you find out what happens next, hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss how this unfolds. Daniels made his decision. He pressed the radio button, but not to the standard channel. He switched to a frequency that hadn't been used in 12 years. An emergency line that went directly to military intelligence. "This is Palace Guard 77 Delta," he said quietly, turning away from the morning patrol walking past. "I have a code silver situation. East Wall, Sector 9. Requesting immediate silent response." There was silence on the other end. Long enough that Daniels wondered if anyone even monitored this frequency anymore. Then a voice came through. Calm, professional, cold. "Confirm code Silver 77 Delta. Do not engage. Do not alert standard security. Maintain visual on the mark. Team en route. ETA 12 minutes. 12 minutes. Daniels looked at his watch. 6:42 a.m. The palace would officially open at 8:30. Inside, the royal family was having breakfast. 200 staff members were preparing for the day. In the West Wing, a delegation from 3 foreign countries was staying as state guests. And somewhere, if the symbol was right, there was a threat already moving through those halls. Daniels positioned himself near the wall, trying to look casual. A gardener walked by with a wheelbarrow. A maintenance worker carried a ladder toward the north entrance. Everything looked normal, but nothing was normal because Daniels knew something else about that symbol. Something the voice on the radio would realize the moment they saw it. The person who drew it was military. It had to be. No one else would know this code. No one else would use it. Which meant one of 2 things. Either someone in the military was trying to warn them about a threat, or someone in the military was the threat. The 12 minutes felt like 12 hours. Daniels kept his position. Eyes moving between the chalk mark and the people passing by. Every face became suspicious. Every movement felt calculated. A woman in a cleaning uniform walked past. She. Looking at the symbol, delivery man pushed a cart toward the service entrance. Why was he here so early? Daniels forced himself to breathe normally. At 6:51 a.m. they arrived. Not in military vehicles, not in uniforms. 3 people in plain clothes, looking like ordinary palace visitors who'd arrived too early. A man in a business suit, a woman with a camera around her neck, another man carrying a coffee cup. But Daniels saw the way they moved, the way their eyes scanned everything, the way they positioned themselves in a triangle formation without seeming to coordinate. The man with the coffee approached him. "Beautiful morning," the man said casually, not looking at Daniels directly. "Storm past," Daniels replied, using the correct counter phrase. The man nodded slightly. "Show me." Daniels gestured toward the wall with his chin. The man's eyes found the symbol immediately. For just a second, his expression changed. A flash of recognition, then concern, then fear. How long has it been there? The man asked quietly. I noticed it 17 minutes ago. Could have been drawn any time since the night patrol at 0300. The man pulled out what looked like a phone, but Daniels knew it was something else. He took 3 photos of the symbol from different angles. Then he tapped the screen several times. We're running it through analysis now, he said. The placement, the angle, the pressure of the chalk, everything tells us something. The woman with the camera had moved closer. She wasn't looking at them. She was watching the palace windows. Second floor, east wing, she said, into what looked like a scarf, but was clearly a microphone. Curtain moved. Someone's watching. Daniels felt ice in his veins. The man with the coffee spoke again, still not looking at Daniels. Your instinct was right. This is code silver. That's worse than you think. How worse? The analysis came back. This chalk contains a trace element, a marker we use for deep cover operatives. Whoever made this mark has been inside our intelligence network. Daniels swallowed hard. So they're one of ours. Or one of ours, the man corrected. 3 weeks ago, an operative went dark, disappeared during an assignment in Eastern Europe. We assumed capture or death. And now we think they came home. So the woman's voice came through again, urgent but controlled. Movement on the South Terrace. 2 individuals. What? Not on the morning schedule. The man with the coffee finally looked at Daniels directly. His eyes were sharp, calculating. We need to evacuate without causing panic. This operative has gone rogue. They're watching for exactly that. Any sign we know they're here, and whatever they're planning happens immediately. What are they planning? Daniels asked. The man glanced at the symbol again. The dot in the center. See how it's slightly off-center, leaning toward the west wing? Daniels looked. He hadn't noticed before, but yes, the dot was positioned maybe a millimeter to the left. That's the target marker, the man explained. West wing, where the foreign delegation is staying. Suddenly everything clicked into place. 3 countries. Historic peace talks. A treaty that would end decades of conflict. The signing was scheduled for tomorrow in the palace's grand hall. If something happened to those delegates... We need to move now, Daniels said. We can't, the woman replied, still watching the windows. Look at the roofline, northeast corner. Daniels looked. At first he saw nothing. Then the sunlight shifted, and he saw it. A glint of metal, there for just a second, then gone. Sniper position, he asked. Observation post, the man said. They're watching every entrance and exit. The moment we try to evacuate, they'll know we found the warning. So what do? The man was quiet for a moment. Then he made a decision. We act like we don't know. It's business as usual. But we bring in our own people, slowly, carefully, and we find out who drew this symbol before they make their next move. He looked at Daniels. You found this? That makes you part of this operation now. Can you handle it? Daniels thought about the symbol, about the person who'd risked everything to draw it, about the lives hanging in the balance. Yes, he said. Good, because in about 90 seconds you're going to do the hardest thing you've ever done. What's that? The man smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You're going to walk away from this wall. Go back to your normal patrol route and pretend you never saw anything at all. Asterisk walking away from that wall was the hardest thing Daniels had ever done. Every instinct screamed at him to stay, to watch, to protect. But he forced his feet to move. One step, then another. Back to his normal patrol route, like nothing had happened, like the world wasn't balancing on the edge of a knife. He walked the perimeter. Checked the south gate, nodded to the morning staff arriving for their shifts. A cook carrying fresh bread, secretary with her briefcase, a maintenance worker with a toolbox. Any one of them could be the threat. His earpiece crackled. A new voice, different from the man with the coffee. 7-7 Delta, this is command. We're in position. We have eyes on you and 17 potential subjects within the palace grounds. Continue normal duties. We'll feed you information as needed. Daniels touched his collar twice. The signal for understood. He moved to the east entrance. Through the glass doors, he could see the main hall. Chandeliers sparkling in the morning light. Marble floors polished to a mirror shine. Everything looked perfect, too perfect. The earpiece crackled again. Subject of interest. Female, 32 years old. Kitchen staff uniform. Entered through the service door 7 minutes ago. She's not on today's schedule. Daniels glanced toward the service corridor. He couldn't see her from here, but he knew the layout. The service corridor connected to the main kitchen. From there, access to the entire palace. Do I intercept? He whispered, pretending to adjust his collar. Negative. Follow only. We need to see where she goes. Daniels moved casually toward the corridor. He passed a window and saw his reflection. He looked calm, professional. Inside, his heart was hammering. He entered the corridor. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The smell of fresh bread and coffee drifted from the kitchen. Normal morning smells. Then he saw her. She was standing near the kitchen entrance, but she wasn't going in. She was looking at something on her phone. Her face was pale, stressed. As Daniels approached, she looked up. Their eyes met. For just a second, something passed between them. Recognition? Fear? Daniels couldn't tell. Then she smiled. A professional smile. Good morning, she said. Morning, Daniels replied, not stopping, not slowing. He walked past her, turned the corner. His earpiece crackled. She's moving. Following you. Daniels kept walking. His hand moved closer to his weapon, not touching it, just closer. 7-7 Delta, stay calm. Let her approach. Footsteps behind him. Getting closer? Excuse me? Her voice called out. Daniels turned. She was 10 feet away. Her hands were visible. Empty. Yes, he said. She stepped closer. 8 feet now. I'm new here. I'm looking for the West Wing kitchen. They told me to report there, but I'm lost. The West Wing. Where the delegates were. It's through the main hall, Daniels said slowly. Left corridor. Can't miss it, she smiled again, but this time Daniels saw it. The smile didn't reach her eyes. Thank you, she said. She started to walk away, then stopped. Turned back. Actually, she said, maybe you could show me? I don't want to be late on my first day. The earpiece was silent. No guidance. No orders. Daniels made a decision. Sure, he said. Follow me. They walked together through the corridor. Daniels kept her in his peripheral vision. Her hands, her body language. Looking for anything unusual? How long have you worked here? She asked. 5 years, Daniels lied. It was actually 8. Must be interesting, protecting such an important place. It has its moments. They entered the main hall. Morning light streamed through the tall windows. A cleaning crew was working on the far side. Everything looked normal, but Daniels felt it. Something wrong? Something off. The woman stopped walking. Actually, she said quietly, I need to tell you something. Daniels turned to face her. His hand moved to his weapon. She saw the movement. Put her hands up slowly. I'm not who you think I am, she said. I know, Daniels replied. No, she said, her voice urgent now. You don't know. I drew the symbol. Time seemed to stop. You, Daniels whispered. I'm Lieutenant Sarah Chen, military intelligence. Deep cover. 3 weeks ago, I discovered something. Something that made me disappear. Something that brought me here. What did you discover? She looked around quickly, making sure they were alone. The threat isn't coming, she said. It's already here. Has been for 6 months. Someone on the palace staff is working with a foreign cell. They've been planning something for tomorrow's signing. The treaty signing? Yes, but it's worse than an assassination. They've planted something. Something I haven't been able to find. That symbol was my last resort. I needed to warn someone who would understand. Daniels felt his world shifting. Why didn't you come through official channels? Sarah's expression darkened. Because the person coordinating this attack has access to official channels. They knew I was getting close. They tried to eliminate me in Eastern Europe. I barely escaped. Who is it? Before she could answer, the earpiece crackled again. But this time, the voice was different, familiar. The man with the coffee. 7-7 Delta, step away from the subject immediately. She is not Lieutenant Chen. Lieutenant Chen died 3 weeks ago in Prague. Confirmed by dental records. Daniels looked at the woman in front of him. She looked at him. And in her eyes, he saw the truth. She had been counting on him not knowing. Daniels' hand moved to his weapon. The woman who claimed to be Sarah. Chen moved faster. She grabbed his wrist before he could draw. Twisted. Daniels felt a sharp pain shoot up his arm. She was trained. Military trained. But so was he. He pivoted, using her momentum against her. They both stumbled backward. Her grip loosened. Daniels pulled free and finally drew his weapon. "Don't move," he commanded. She froze. Hands raised. But she was smiling. "You're making a mistake," she said calmly. "The real Lieutenant Chen is dead," Daniels said, his weapon steady. "So who are you?" The earpiece crackled. Back up, converging. Hold position. Do not let her speak. Do not let her speak. That was odd. Why wouldn't they want him to hear what she had to say? The woman seemed to catch the confusion on his face. "They don't want you to know the truth," she said quickly. "I am Sarah Chen. And yes, someone died in Prague with my dental records. But it wasn't me." "Quiet," Daniels ordered. "They faked my death," she continued, speaking faster now. "To flush out a mole in military intelligence. I've been working undercover ever since. The symbol was the only way I could communicate without compromising the operation." Footsteps echoed from both corridors. The backup was coming. "If I'm lying," Sarah said urgently, "then ask yourself this. How did I know the exact symbol? How did I know the correct placement? The correct height? The meaning of the TAT position? That information is classified above top secret." Daniels hesitated. She was right. The symbol wasn't something just anyone would know. The man with the coffee appeared from the east corridor. The woman with the camera from the west. Both had weapons drawn. "Step away from her, Sergeant," the man ordered. Sarah's eyes locked on Daniels. "The man talking to you is not military intelligence. His name is Marcus Webb. He's a contractor. Hired 3 months ago. No background check. No verification. Ask him where he was stationed. Ask him his service number." "She's trying to manipulate you," Marcus said calmly. "Classic interrogation tactic. Creating doubt." "Then answer her questions," Daniels said, surprising himself. His weapon was still trained on Sarah. But something in his gut was screaming that this wasn't right. Marcus's expression hardened. "I don't answer to you, Sergeant. Service number," Daniels repeated. "It's a simple question. Every military personnel knows their number by heart." The silence stretched for 3 seconds. Marcus's weapon shifted. Not toward Sarah, toward Daniels. "I'm sorry it had to be this way," Marcus said. Time slowed down. Daniels saw Marcus's finger begin to squeeze the trigger. Saw the woman with the camera raising her weapon too. Both aimed at him. Then Sarah moved. She lunged not away from danger but toward it, straight at Marcus. Her shoulder hit his chest, just as the gun fired. The shot went wide, slamming into the marble wall behind where Daniels had been standing. Daniels dove behind a pillar. More shots. The sound was deafening in the enclosed hall. Marble chips exploded around him. Through the chaos, he heard Sarah's voice. "West Wing. The device is in the West Wing ventilation system. You have to warn them." More gunfire. Then a cry of pain. Daniels risked a look around the pillar. Sarah was on the ground. Blood spreading across her shoulder. Marcus and the woman were advancing on her. The earpiece crackled one more time. But this voice was different. Official. Real. "All units. This is actual command. We have a situation. Agents Marcus Webb and Catherine Torres have gone rogue. They are not authorized military intelligence. Shoot to kill authorization granted. 7-7 Delta. If you can hear this, Lieutenant Chen is real. She's been working undercover. Protect her at all costs." Everything clicked into place. Daniels came out from behind the pillar, weapon raised. "Drop your weapons, now." Marcus spun toward him. Fired. Daniels felt the bullet pass close enough to feel the heat. He returned fire. 2 shots. Center mass. Marcus went down. Catherine turned, her weapon swinging toward Daniels. But she never got the shot off. From the east corridor, more gunfire. Real military personnel in tactical gear flooded into the hall. Catherine dropped her weapon and raised her hands. The firefight was over in seconds. Daniels ran to Sarah. She was conscious but bleeding badly. He pressed his hand against the wound, trying to slow the blood loss. The West Wing, she gasped. The ventilation. They've planted a chemical device. Time to release during tomorrow's ceremony. I found the plans but couldn't locate the exact placement. A medic pushed Daniels aside, taking over. Another soldier knelt beside Sarah. Ma'am, we need the exact location. Any detail you can remember? Sarah's eyes were starting to lose focus. Blueprints. In my locker? Service level 3. Locker 47, her eyes closed. Stay with us, Lieutenant, the medic urged. A new officer approached Daniels. Colonel insignia on his plain clothes. Sergeant Daniels, your quick thinking may have just saved hundreds of lives. We're evacuating the West Wing now, but we need to find that device. She said service level 3. Locker 47, the colonel spoke into his radio. Team 2, service level 3. Locker search. Authorization code red deltanine. Daniels looked down at Marcus's body. Then at Catherine, being handcuffed by 2 soldiers. How long were they planning this? He asked. The colonel's face was grim. We think 6 months. Maybe longer. They weren't just contractors. They were foreign operatives with deep enough cover to pass our initial screenings. When Lieutenant Chen started getting close, they tried to eliminate her in Prague, killed someone else, and used the body to fake her death. The symbol was her only way to communicate without them knowing. She couldn't trust normal channels because she didn't know how deep the infiltration went. Daniels felt the weight of the last hour settling on him. Is she going to make it? The colonel looked at where the medics were working on Sarah. I don't know. But because of what you both did, we have a chance to stop this. Soldier ran up, breathing hard. Sir, we found the locker. Our blueprints. Detailed plans. The device is in the West Wing ventilation system. But what? The soldier's face went pale. There are 2 devices, and the second one isn't in the West Wing. The colonel grabbed the blueprints from the soldier's hands. Daniels looked over his shoulder. The papers were covered in technical drawings, measurements, chemical formulas. Red circles marked 2 locations in the palace. One in the West Wing ventilation system, the other in the main ceremonial hall. Signing ceremony, Daniels said, the realization hitting him like ice water. It's not happening in the West Wing. It was moved last week. Security concerns. The colonel's face went white. Where is it happening? The main ceremonial hall? 2nd floor? Directly above us. The colonel spun to his team. Evacuate the ceremonial hall now. Full hazmat team to both locations. We have, he checked his watch, 23 hours until the ceremony. Sir, another soldier interrupted, running up with a laptop. We've analyzed the blueprints. The devices are rigged with motion sensors. If we try to move them, they detonate immediately. What kind of chemical are we dealing with? The soldier's hands shook as he read from the screen. VX nerve agent, military grade. Each device contains enough to kill everyone in a 50-meter radius within minutes. The hall went silent. VX was one of the deadliest substances ever created. A single drop on skin could kill in minutes. It's inhaled as vapor. It was even faster. Can we defuse them in place? Colonel asked. Unknown, sir. We'd need to examine them first. But according to these plans, they're designed to detect any tampering. Wrong move, and they go off. Daniels felt his mind racing. What about the person who designed them? Catherine or Marcus must know how to disarm them. The colonel turned to where Catherine was being held. He walked over to her, Daniels following. Catherine looked up at them. She was smiling, comfortable. The colonel asked coldly. Very, Catherine replied, enjoying the show. Tell us how to disarm the devices. Her smile widened. Or what? You'll torture me. We both know you won't. Not in time. Not with your rules. The colonel leaned closer. 2 devices. VX nerve agent. Hundreds of innocent people. Tell me how to stop them. Can't help you, Catherine said cheerfully. Even if I wanted to. Marcus designed the triggers. I just placed them. And Marcus. She glanced at his body, being covered with a sheet, isn't talking anymore. Daniels felt rage building in his chest. You're willing to die too? When those devices go off, you'll be just as dead as everyone else. Will I? Catherine's eyes gleamed. You sure about that? Maybe I have a gas mask hidden somewhere? Maybe I have an antidote? Maybe I'm already dead inside and just don't care? The colonel straightened. Get her out of my sight. The soldiers dragged Catherine away, still smiling. Daniels turned to the colonel. There has to be another way. There is, a weak voice said behind them. They spun around. Sarah was sitting up, the medic trying to push her back down. Her shoulder was bandaged, her face pale from blood loss, but her eyes were sharp. You should be resting, the medic protested. I'll rest when this is over, Sarah said. She looked at the colonel. I've studied those devices for 2 weeks while undercover. I know how Marcus built them. Can you disarm them? Colonel asked urgently. Maybe, but we need to find them first. And we need to be absolutely certain of the locations. The blueprints show placement, but buildings shift. Ventilation systems get modified. If we're off by even a meter, we could trigger the sensors. Daniels had an idea. The palace has updated building schematics. Engineering department. You track every modification, every change. Get them, the colonel ordered. Now, Daniels ran. Down corridors he'd walked 1,000 times, past confused staff members being quietly evacuated, past security checkpoints being reinforced. He reached the engineering office and burst through the door. A startled engineer looked up from his desk. Can I help you? I need the current ventilation schematics. It's West Wing and Ceremonial Hall. Right now. It's classified, Daniels showed. His credentials and the emergency authorization the colonel had transmitted to his phone. People are going to die if I don't get those schematics in the next 60 seconds. The engineer's face went pale. He turned to his computer, fingers flying across the keyboard. Printing now. The printer hummed to life. Page after page of detailed blueprints. Daniels grabbed them the moment they finished. He ran back, his lungs burning. When he returned to the main hall, a full tactical team had assembled. Sarah was on her feet, leaning against a table. No, 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 I'm also I'm sen I'm love so I'm done looking at so us for we so me it's so no so love so no. Sarah compared them carefully. Her finger traced lines on both sets of papers. Here, she said, pointing. The West Wing device. It's in ventilation shaft 7B. Third junction from the main access point, and the ceremonial hall, the colonel asked. Sarah's finger moved to the second schematic. Stopped, moved again. Her face went even paler. What is it? Daniels asked.
S.
The device is directly above the main stage, where the delegates will be sitting for the signing. But that's not the problem. What's the problem? Sarah looked up, her eyes filled with dread. According to these updated schematics, there's a third ventilation shaft that wasn't in the original blueprints. One that Marcus wouldn't have known about. One that connects directly to... She didn't finish. She didn't have to. The ceremonial hall modifications had created an additional pathway for the gas to spread. If the device went off, it wouldn't just kill everyone in the hall, it would spread through the entire palace. Many people are in the building right now? Sarah asked quietly. The colonel checked his tablet. Even with the evacuation, approximately 400 staff, security, and delegation members. The royal family hasn't been evacuated yet. We didn't want to cause panic or alert whoever else might be involved. 400 people. Daniels felt the weight of it. If they failed, if the devices went off, 400 lives would end in minutes. Horrible, agonizing minutes. How long do we have? He asked. Sarah checked the blueprints one more time. The devices are on a timer. Set to activate at 10 a.m. tomorrow. During the opening remarks of the ceremony, the colonel looked at his watch. That gives us 22 hours and 40 minutes. No, Sarah said, her voice shaking. Look at this notation, here in Marcus's handwriting. Daniels leaned closer. In tiny letters along the margin of the blueprint, there was a note. Backup trigger. Motion sensor activation if tampered. Secondary trigger, remote detonation if primary fails. Remote detonation? The colonel said. You mean someone can set these off manually? Sarah nodded. If they realize we found the devices, they can trigger them from anywhere. Phone, computer, radio signal, anything. Then we can't let them know we found them, Daniels said. The colonel asked. We have to evacuate. We have to get people to safety. Sarah's eyes met Daniels's. In that moment, a silent understanding passed between them. We don't evacuate, Sarah said. We act like everything is normal, like we never found the symbol. Like none of this ever happened. That's insane, the colonel said. We'd be risking hundreds of lives. We're already risking hundreds of lives, Sarah replied. But if we evacuate, whoever's watching will know we're onto them. They'll detonate immediately. At least this way we have a chance. The colonel was quiet for a long moment. Then he made the hardest decision of his career. Do it, he said, but we have one shot at this. One chance to disarm both devices without anyone knowing. Who's going? In. Sarah stood straighter, despite the pain in her shoulder. I am. I know the devices. I know how Marcus thinks. You're injured, the medic protested. I'm alive, Sarah countered. And I'm the best chance we have. Daniel stepped forward. I'm going with her. You're a palace guard, the colonel said. No offense, but this is specialized work. I found the symbol. I'm part of this now, and I know every inch of this palace. Every shortcut, every back corridor. If something goes wrong, she'll need someone who can get her out fast. The colonel looked between them, then nodded. You have until 9 a.m. tomorrow. It's 1 hour before detonation. If you're not out by then, we evacuate everything and pray. Sarah picked up a toolkit one of the tactical team members handed her. Daniels grabbed a blueprint. As they headed toward the west wing, the colonel called out one more time. And if you can't disarm them, Sarah didn't turn around, then at least we'll die knowing we tried. The ventilation shaft was smaller than Daniels expected. He held the flashlight while Sarah worked. Her hands steady, despite the pain in her shoulder. They'd accessed the shaft through a maintenance panel on the 3rd floor of the west wing. Around them, the palace continued its normal operations. Staff preparing rooms. Delegates having breakfast. No one knew that death was hidden in the walls. There, Sarah whispered, pointing. Daniels aimed the flashlight. 10 feet ahead, secured to the ventilation duct with metal bands, was a metal box about the size of a briefcase. Wires ran from it into the duct. A small LED light blinked red every 3 seconds. That's it? Daniels asked. That's it. Sarah pulled out a tablet from her toolkit. I'm going to scan it first. See what we're dealing with. She aimed a small device at the box. The tablet screen filled with wireframe images showing the inside of the device. Daniels saw circuit boards, batteries, and a glass container filled with liquid, the VX nerve agent. Motion sensors here and here. Sarah pointed to 2 small components. Touch the box, and they trigger. The container breaks, the liquid vaporizes, and anyone within 50 meters dies within 3 minutes. Can you disarm it? Sarah studied the screen for a long moment. Maybe see this wire? It runs from the timer to the release mechanism. If I can cut it without moving the box, the timer becomes useless. What about the motion sensors? They'll still be active, but without the timer, the device won't go off on its own. We can deal with the sensors after the ceremony when we have more time. What about the remote trigger? Sarah's face darkened. That's the problem. The remote trigger is separate. Cutting the timer wire won't disable it. If someone sends the signal, it still goes off. Daniels felt his stomach drop. So even if we disarm the timer, we're still on borrowed time. If whoever's watching realizes something's wrong, they hit the button, and it's over. They looked at each other in the dim light of the ventilation shaft. We have to take that chance, Daniels said. Disarm the timer. At least that gives us until 9 a.m. Sarah nodded. She pulled out a small pair of wire cutters. Her hands were shaking slightly. You okay? Daniels asked. Lost a lot of blood. Hands aren't as steady as they should be. Can you do it? Sarah took a deep breath. I have to. She inched forward. The shaft was so narrow she had to move on her stomach, pulling herself along with her elbows. Every movement sent vibrations through the metal. The device's red light continued its steady blinking. 3 seconds. Blink. 3 seconds. Blink. Sarah reached the device. She positioned the wire cutters around the thin wire she'd identified. Daniels held his breath. On 3, Sarah whispered. 1, 2. She cut. The wire snapped. The LED light continued blinking. Nothing happened. Sarah let out a breath. Timers disabled. 1 down, they backed out of the shaft carefully. Once they were in the maintenance corridor again, Sarah checked her watch. 3:47 a.m. We have 5 hours and 13 minutes before we need to tackle the ceremonial hall device. Why wait? Daniels asked. Let's get it done now, because the ceremonial hall is being set up for tonight's rehearsal. Too many people, too many eyes. We need to wait until they break for lunch at 9 a.m. Daniels nodded. So what do we do until then? We find out who has the remote trigger. They made their way back to the tactical command center the colonel had set up in a secure room on the ground floor. The colonel looked up as they entered. Status. West Wing device is neutralized, Sarah reported. Timers cut. But the remote trigger is still active. And the ceremonial hall will hit it at 9 a.m. during the lunch break. The colonel pulled up surveillance footage on multiple screens. We've been reviewing security camera footage from the past 6 months. Looking for anyone who might be working with Marcus and Catherine? Find anything? Daniels asked. Too much. 17 people with suspicious movement patterns. Unusual access times. Unexplained communications. Sarah leaned closer to the screens. Her eyes scanned face after face, then stopped. Him, she said, pointing at a man in maintenance clothing. I've seen him before. In Eastern Europe. Right before they tried to kill me, the colonel zoomed in. Edward Price, maintenance supervisor. Been with the palace for 8 months. Background check came back clean. It would, Sarah said. These people are professionals. Their covers are deep. Years in the making. Where is he now? Daniels asked. The colonel typed rapidly. According to the system, he clocked in at 6 a.m., currently assigned to the ceremonial hall. Sarah and Daniels exchanged looks. That's not a coincidence, Sarah said. He's watching the device, making sure no one finds it. Then we have a problem, the colonel said. If he's there, you can't access the device without him seeing you. Daniels thought for a moment. What if we don't try to hide? What do you mean? Edward Price has been here 8 months. He's part of the background. No one pays attention to maintenance workers. But what if we give him something else to pay attention to? Sarah caught on. A distraction. Exactly. We stage something. A security drill, a VIP arrival, anything that pulls him away from the ceremonial hall for 15 minutes. The colonel nodded slowly. I can arrange that. We have a delegation arriving at 8:30. I can move it to 9 a.m. Full security protocol. Every available staff member required to assist. That could work, Sarah said. But what if he doesn't leave? What if he stays with the device? Then we have a bigger problem than we thought, the colonel replied. Because it would mean he knows we're onto him. The next 5 hours crawled by. Daniels tried to rest, but couldn't. His mind kept replaying the moment Sarah cut that wire. kept imagining what would have happened if her hand had slipped. If the motion sensor had triggered at 8:45 a.m., he and Sarah got into position. They were dressed as HVAC technicians with legitimate work orders for the ceremonial hall's air conditioning system. The colonel had arranged everything. On paper, it looked routine. The ceremonial hall was magnificent. 2 stories high, with ornate decorations and historical paintings covering the walls. The stage was set for tomorrow's signing. 3 tables arranged in a triangle. Flags from each country displayed behind them, and somewhere in the ventilation system above. Death waited. Daniel spotted Edward Price immediately. He was on a ladder, pretending to adjust a light fixture. But his eyes kept moving to the ventilation grate above the stage. At exactly 9 a.m., the announcement came over the palace intercom. All security and maintenance personnel to the east entrance. VIP arrival protocol. This is not a drill. Staff members immediately started moving toward the east entrance. But Edward Price stayed on his ladder. Daniels felt his pulse quicken. This was bad. Then Edward's phone rang. He answered it, listened for a moment, and his face changed. He climbed down from the ladder quickly and headed for the exit. He's moving, Daniels whispered into his mic. Confirmed, the colonel's voice came back. You have 12 minutes. Maybe less. Sarah was already moving. She had the access panel open and was inside the ventilation system before Edward was even out of the hall. Daniels followed, pulling the panel closed behind them. They crawled through the shaft. Following the blueprint on Sarah's tablet, the ceremonial hall device was larger than the first one. More sophisticated? This is different, Sarah said, her voice tight. Marcus upgraded it. More sensors. More fail-safes? Can you disarm it? She scanned it with her tablet. The screen showed a complex web of wires and sensors. The timer wire is protected by a pressure sensor. If I cut it, the sensor triggers and the device goes off, so we can't disarm it. Sarah stared at the screen, thinking. Her fingers traced the wireframe image. There might be a way. If I can override the pressure sensor first, I can cut the timer wire. But I need to access the sensor's circuit board. How long will that take? 8, maybe 10 minutes. Daniels checked his watch. We have 9 minutes before Edward gets back. Then I better work fast. Sarah opened her toolkit and pulled out a micro screwdriver. She began removing tiny screws from the device's casing. Each turn of the screwdriver sent Daniels' heart rate higher. 1 screw, 2, 3. How we doing on time? Sarah asked, without looking up. 6 minutes. 4 screws. 5. The casing came off. Sarah set it aside carefully and examined the circuit board inside. There, the pressure sensor's relay. If I can bridge these 2 points, the sensor will think the pressure is constant even when I remove the wire. She pulled out a small jumper cable, positioned it carefully. 5 minutes, Daniels said. Sarah attached one end of the jumper, then the other. A small LED on the circuit board changed from red to green, sensors bridged. Cutting the timer wire now. She pulled out the wire cutters, found the wire, positioned the cutters. For minutes she cut. The LED blinked once and went dark. Did it work? Daniels asked. Sarah checked her tablet. The wireframe showed the timer circuit was dead. It worked. Timer's disabled. But the remote trigger is still active. If someone sends the signal... I know, Daniels said. We need to get out of here. Edward's going to be back any second. They backed out of the shaft quickly. Daniels replaced the access panel just as voices echoed in the hallway outside. Edward Price walked back into the ceremonial hall. He looked around, his eyes suspicious. He walked to where Daniels and Sarah were standing with their work orders. Air conditioning problem? He asked. All fixed, Daniels replied casually. Thermostat was miscalibrated. Edward's eyes narrowed. He looked at Sarah. Really looked at her. For a moment, Daniels thought he recognized her. Then Edward nodded. Good work. He turned and walked back to his ladder. Daniels and Sarah left the hall, walking at a normal pace, even though every instinct screamed at them to run. Once they were in a secure corridor, Sarah leaned against the wall. Both devices are neutralized. The timers are dead. But the remote triggers are still active, Daniel said. As long as whoever's running this operation has that remote, we're still in danger. Then we need to find them before tomorrow at 10 a.m. We have 25 hours, Daniel said, checking his watch. Sarah pushed off the wall. Then let's get to work. The next day unfolded with agonizing slowness. The palace prepared for the historic signing. Delegates arrived. Media set up cameras. The world watched, completely unaware of how close they'd all come to disaster. Sarah and the tactical team worked through the night, analyzing data, tracking communications, following every lead. Edward. Price was under constant surveillance, but he made no suspicious moves. No phone calls, no texts, nothing. At 9:55 a.m., 5 minutes before the ceremony was scheduled to begin, Sarah found it. A radio signal, encrypted, bouncing through multiple relays but traceable. "I've got the remote trigger signal," she said urgently. "It's active. Someone's preparing to send the detonation command." "Can you block it?" the colonel asked. "Working on it. But I need the exact source location to jam it effectively." Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Lines of code scrolled past. "The signal trace refined." "Got it," she said. "The signal's coming from inside the palace." "Where?" Daniels demanded. Sarah's face went white as she read the location. "The royal family's private wing. The signal is coming from someone in the royal family's quarters." Daniels felt the world tilt. "That's impossible." "Security there is absolute. No one gets in without." He stopped. Understanding hit him like a freight train. "Unless they've been there all along," Sarah finished. The colonel was already moving. "Lock down the royal wing. No one in or out. Find out who's sending that signal." Daniels and Sarah ran. Through corridors, upstairs, past confused security guards. They reached the royal wing just as a figure emerged from a private study. A woman, mid-50s, elegant, carrying a small device. The Queen's personal secretary, someone who'd had access to everything for 15 years. She saw them and smiled, the same smile Catherine had worn. "Too late," she said, and pressed the button on the device. For one horrible second, Daniels thought they'd failed, thought the devices would detonate and hundreds would die. But nothing happened. The woman's smile faded. She pressed the button again and again. Looking for this? Sarah held up a small circuit board. "I pulled the remote receivers from both devices while we were disarming the timers. Your signal has nowhere to go." The woman's face twisted with rage. She reached into her jacket. Daniels moved faster. He tackled her before she could draw whatever weapon she was reaching for. Security swarmed in seconds later. As they handcuffed her and led her away, she looked back at Sarah. "You should have died in Prague," she spat. "I'm hard to kill," Sarah replied. The ceremonial hall ceremony went off without incident. 3 countries signed a historic peace treaty. The world celebrated a new era of cooperation. No one except a handful of people knew how close they'd all come to catastrophe. 3 days later, Daniels found Sarah in the palace gardens. She was out of the hospital, her shoulder healing. She was staring at the east wall where the symbol had been. Someone had washed it away. "You saved a lot of lives," Daniels said. "We saved a lot of lives," Sarah corrected. "If you hadn't found that symbol, if you hadn't trusted your instincts, if you hadn't been brave enough to draw it." They stood in silence for a moment. "What happens now?" Daniels asked. "For me? Probably another deep cover assignment. Another mission. More secrets." She looked at him. "For you," Daniels smiled. "Back to normal palace guard duty. Standing at gates, checking credentials. The boring stuff. Will you miss this? The excitement?" Daniels thought about the terror of those moments in the ventilation shaft. The weight of knowing hundreds of lives depended on getting it right. "No," he said honestly. "I'll take boring any day." Sarah laughed. Then she extended her hand. "Thank you, Sergeant Daniels, for believing me when you had every reason not to." Daniels shook her hand. "Thank you, Lieutenant Chen, for being stubborn enough to survive." She turned to leave, then stopped. That symbol on the wall. You know what the real meaning was? Danger present. Evacuate immediately. That's what the manual says. But there's another meaning, an older one. From before it was military code. What's that? Sarah smiled. Help is here. You're not alone. She walked away, disappearing into the palace. Daniels watched her go. Then he returned to his post at the east gate. Just another palace guard, standing watch, keeping people safe. But now he knew the truth. Sometimes the smallest mark on a wall can change everything. Sometimes the quietest warning saves the loudest lives. Sometimes when the world is seconds from disaster, it's the people no one notices who step up and become heroes. Daniels touched his collar, feeling the outline of the commendation medal the colonel had given him. It was classified. He'd never be able to tell anyone about it. His family would never know what he'd done. But he knew, and that was enough. The morning sun climbed higher. Tourists began arriving at the palace gates. A new day began. Normal, peaceful, safe, exactly the way it should be.